Race 2 of the Past Masters Regatta at Grafham. This was the bank holiday regatta that we just had. If you saw my previous video, that was race 1 and we had a massive course. Race officer decided, let's keep it a little bit tighter, where we've got two boats that are very different in speed. So this time we were only doing about half the length of the beat and we're doing a triangle instead of a trapezoid. So kept things interesting. Now we're about a minute to go. We've got the laser just to leeward of me and I'm thinking, right, let me try and get a good slot on the line. Now the issue is I'm a little bit high on the committee boat, so it means anytime I bear away like this, the boat's just going to accelerate really quickly and I'm going to start running out of space for the line. So I'm trying to bear away and then I start heading it up big time just to kind of park it up on the start line. Not too much though, because I have a fair bit of kicker on, and anyone who sailed a 600 knows that once the 600 gets head to wind, it's a bit of a faff. So trying really hard not to park the boat, but trying to not go very fast. I'm thinking, looking at my watch, thinking I've got a little bit of time here, a little bit of time. I've got plenty of start line I can sail down. The key thing is I'm trying to hit the line with plenty of speed, but I am a little early. So I start going down the line, getting accelerated up big time, getting the weight back to stop me nosediving, and then I just throw it in. I look at my watch halfway thinking, I've still got 5 seconds. Luckily I wasn't OCS, but I thought at this point, I might as well just go for the start, see what happens. If I'm over, but, you know, I'll find out. Now, as you can see, it's pretty windy here. I decided to go for attack fairly early on. Like the last race, I just felt like I got the boat going much nicer in port. Also, when they said that the mark we were going to was Z, which from my memory was way more to the right than it actually was, considering where R was. Now, if I think about it, R and Z are both red marks, which means if you look at them on a map, they're directly north of one another. So, in theory, it's just a bit shorter, but I was still thinking, this is surely very much, you know, we want to go right to get to this mark. And I imagine that's probably a fairly accurate assumption, because I tack onto port fairly early on, and annoyingly I don't have any of the map GPS data for this one. Sadly, my watch stopped recording it, so we can't see exactly what we're working with here, but I head off over to the right hand side, pop a pretty messy tack in, to be honest, but the key thing is I stayed upright, get myself hooked on, and yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, I found Z, but I couldn't really see it, and the guy on the laser radial had the same issue. We were both like, we know roughly where it is, but we couldn't really see it with all the spray and the sun. So I've overstood it a little bit here just to play it safe, just in case it's a bit shifty, a bit like it was when we got up to R. It's actually not too bad because we're quite far from the shore here, probably a good 500 meters or so, but best to play it safe, especially in these conditions where double tack is just not very fast in a 600 specifically. So here's Z, that red mark. Now we're going for a quite I don't know if I call it a tight reach. It's a fairly sort of middle ground reach. Get myself lower before I go around the mark. I've got a bit of kicker off too, just to help the boat accelerate. And as you can see, I could probably do a standing a little further forwards, but it's difficult because as soon as I go further forwards, I'm now too low on the trapeze, and I've only got so many hands. So I'm sort of expecting the worst based on how the beat was, and there, I'm glad I did, because the boat's now just accelerating like crazy and flying away into the distance. So, but it's a little bit up and down this top reach. It kind of comes and goes. I'm sort of aware as well that now we have to gybe at H, which is where we were going onto that bottom reach in the last video. So with that in mind, I'm thinking, if I can take a little bit of height, that means I can then bear away onto a run, go for my gybe quite comfortably, and then harden up for a reach. The other thing I need to factor in as well is getting some kicker off. Now, I've still got a fair amount of kicker on. The gybe will be a lot easier if I can get the kicker off, but if anyone sailed a 600, when I've been sailing my laser, you don't really have that much range, as in you've got plenty of range, but the amount of rope you're pulling because of the purchase and stuff isn't really that much compared to a 600. In a 600, to go from off to on, it's just mountains of rope you've got to pull, in fact, because of the purchase system. So I'm a bit worried about taking some off, going for the gybe, and then having to spend ages pulling it back on, and I'm losing all that time from going from one tack to the other, because all I want to do is go from one wire to the other. But if I don't have any kicker on before I hop out, I won't be able to go forwards and reach it very easily. And also, even if it was further back, it's just I need to focus on steering and playing the main to get the kicker on. So it's definitely pays to get it on, but it's difficult. I'm pulling it from the rack as I got a little bit more leverage. I can pull more on in one armful. So here's my gybe, very safe. I don't think I actually pulled that much kicker off, but I've pulled a bit more on now. Pulled a bit more on there. Yeah, I had it about half off. Now I've got it on about 80% on. Now, yeah, here's H. I definitely could have maybe gone a little bit further, but I'm now ready to then just hook on. I could do a bing maybe a tad lower. Actually, that's not too bad. Ooh, lost my footing there. A lot of people have been asking me about the shoes I've been wearing. I've been getting a lot of messages on Instagram about what are the shoes that I keep wearing. They are the Zik Fuse shoes. Very happy with them. The key thing I like is for a long day on the water with a lot of trapezing, especially in a race like this, I find that they support my feet really nicely. I don't get achy feet like I have done in maybe traditional boots. I've also got a pair of the Zik split toe shoes. Now, if you've ever watched me sail, you'll notice that when I'm sailing a laser, I use my goal boots, or the 400, I use my goal boots. In the 600, I'm using these Zik shoes, trainers, and when I'm sailing a trapeze double-hander like a Hornet, I am using the split toes, mainly because the Hornet has a habit of eating my shoes on various fittings, and I don't want it to eat my shoes. The split toes are quite nice. I used them on recently in the 600 because I just done a stint in the Hornet. Ooh, very dramasome there. I thought I was going to capsize the windward there. I managed to pull it in. As you can see, the take-up for my main sheet actually breaks. It's like the knot comes undone, so now my main sheet is not tied to near the ratchet anymore because I'm pulling the elastic to basically get myself out of the water. That's a pretty good save, but now my main sheet's loose, which is a bit annoying, as you'll see in a little bit. But I didn't fall in. So yeah, as I was saying, the Zik split toes are quite nice. I do quite like them, but I have a habit of the heel popping out, which is really hard to solve when you're hooning like this in a 600. And the split toe-ness means that ropes like my kicker or the main sheet get caught between my toes, which is a bit annoying. So I do like them. They're very, very grippy. Potentially, I'd almost prefer them to the shoes sometimes. The shoes are very grippy, but the hard soles, obviously, Den has it's not necessarily the perfect solution. But they're harder wearing, which is good. They last longer, I find. So, yeah, I need to have a little play around with that. Maybe the Zik boots would be a good idea. I'll have to have a look. Now, we're going round our bottom mark here, trying to get myself higher on the trapeze, trying to get myself forwards. I do need to pull kicker and stuff on, but yeah, you can see I'm having issues with the main sheet. It's getting all over the place, getting caught in the rack, whatnot. Now, some people go, why do you need to tie a knot in it? Let's watch this tack. Ooh. Not my cleanest work, but it's all going a little bit wrong. Okay, so yeah, my main sheet's all over the place, and I'm trying to make sure it's not causing me problems. Yeah, get the kicker off a little bit, just help the boat get accelerated. It's hard to hook on because I need to hook on and get further back, because as you can see, the hook's so loose on me that I'm worried that I'll jump out and it won't be hooked on, then I'll fall over, snap my tiller extension, and that's very slow. Now, my main sheet's actually got caught between the rudder blade and the back of the boat. Impressive, I know. It does mean that if I was to go around the windward mark and let the main out, I will run out of main sheet. And so I'm looking back constantly trying to think about what the hell's going on, where's it stuck? Because I keep trying to pull it thinking it's just the water pulling it backwards, but no, it's actually like jammed because there is a knot in the end of it that was tied around the elastic that is no longer tied to it. So you'll see in a second that I actually lean back over the back of the boat, unhook it from my rudder, which will be good for the rudder too. The rudder will work slightly more effectively if it doesn't have a thing in the way of it. So yeah, I can sort of figured out what the problem was, so I'm like, oh, I can fix that without even unhooking. So I just lean backwards, unhook it. There you go. Main sheet I give it a good old tug, and now it's hanging out. Now, I was talking to my friend who's got an international canoe, and he doesn't tie his main sheet to anything. He just lets it hang like I've got it right now. And he asked why I don't do that in the 600, especially because I often run into issues where my main sheet gets caught around the corner of the rack. I often run out of main sheet when I'm on these broad reaches. And the honest answer is, the problem with my boat is if you look at the cockpit, it's curved, and the main sheet has a tendency to, the rack's obviously is straight, and so at the back of the boat there is this sort of semicircle shape between the rack and the hull. So the main sheet can slide under the rack, and then it can slide to the side where it gets narrower and effectively acts like a V cleat, like a cam cleat sort of thing. So now my main sheet is jammed in my rack, which is not helpful in the slightest. I also find it personally quite annoying where it's just constantly being pulled backwards out the back of the boat, rather than, you know, I feel like I'm fighting it, especially in these sort of windier weather. Ooh, I just, not quite the tack I wanted. I managed to smack the camera with a tiller extension and just not get it over, but quickly get the kicker off, get the boat back righted, try and get my main sheet a little less tangled. This race is not quite going to plan for me. Luckily, capsize and that dunking earlier is not too, hasn't been too slow, but let's try and get sheeted on again and just go for power here. Just taking it easy. Now, the rack in the water is not quick, but I've just got to get myself comfortable, head the boat up just a little bit. There we go. It's now trying to just like close reach like crazy, just absolutely overpowered. I don't know if I ever pulled my Cunningham quite back on from the reaching, but yeah, I could do it just going a little bit closer to the wind just to sort of manage that power. This was definitely one of those kind of days where planing upwind was definitely doable, even with the waves being a little bit problematic. I mean, you can see the amount of white horses. It was absolutely honking. And it got windier. First race was pretty windy, but the second race was definitely windier. And with both the reaching and the gybe being quite a sort of tetchy gybe from one reach to another, there was lots of opportunity for it to go wrong. Now I know where Z is, the windward mark. I'm still heading over to this right-hand side. I just think it was a little bit, but I just found sailing on port a little bit easier with the waves. The boat just felt like it would plane over them a little bit better. And then once I got over to the right, it was a little less wavy, so I found it then okay for going round. It also meant that I could just focus on getting around the windward mark, so because I was on the starboard ley line, I could get the kicker off fairly early, get myself lower on the trapeze, and then go. So yeah, as you can see, it's pretty up and down. Ooh, just pulling a little bit more. I can't tell what that was. I think that might have been kicker. Away we go. So yeah, you can see I'm working it pretty hard. This sail I've got is kind of just past its best. That was a much better tack. Other than the main sheets going places I'm not used to it going, so I keep standing on it, which is obviously less than ideal. Pretty good tack, I'd say, all things considered. Across the key thing is I've been struggling to sort of... I'm not doing the unhooking, turning, and crossing the boat all in sync. I sort of do all of them, but not necessarily in relation to one another, so it starts causing me problems. So yeah, we can see Z is just to the... I'm a little overlaid the ley line there, so I can start getting the kicker off, start thinking about reaching. And as you can see, the boat wants to just accelerate like crazy, getting myself lower on the trapeze. I was actually looking back at some of the videos from Datchet Flyer, where I was so high on the trapeze on that top reach where I spectacularly capsized and ended up flying past the boat. Yeah, I think I probably would have not capsized if I was trapezing lower, because my center of gravity was so high that I just felt so unstable. Whereas I've been doing a lot of practice this winter about trapezing low, just so that when I can get low, I'm nice and planted. I don't feel like I'm just going to fall forwards. The issue I found with trapezing high at the back, well, if you're trapezing in an upwind sort of position and then stand back, you feel very upright. And while the boat might still be going nicely and going flat, it feels really uncomfortable, and I feel like at any second I'll just lose my balance and fall forwards, and then everything will go wrong. So this top reach is a little bit easier to get the boat planing this time. It's kind of not quite a 2-foot action, as you can see. It's actually kind of more just a trapeze off the gunnel because it's quite a broad reach. But there's a few good gusts to bear away on. It's sort of a little bit up and down. You've got to be very on your feet for this one, because sometimes it's quite windy, sometimes it's not that it's not windy, it's still honking. It's just because it's quite broad, it's not quite full trapezing. So I actually bring myself a little bit higher on the trapeze for some of this, especially in the last lap, because it's kind of a run. It's not actually a run, it's a very broad reach, but yeah, some of it is just a little bit difficult to find the right groove. After doing it for a while, I decided this is actually more like a downwind leg, start getting some kicker off, effectively making myself ready for the gybe. That jibe was actually very, very good. I'm very happy with that. Kept the boat nice and flat. Popped the battens. Yeah, that was really nice. Now I've got to pour everything back on so that, yeah, let's see, have I got to get myself hooked on? And that was probably one of my better roundings. Came into the mark nicely, got the jibe in, got out the rack straight away, got the boat accelerating. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. If I could do that every time, that would be fantastic. Okay, we're accelerating nicely. Hopefully we don't throw ourselves into windward this time. I ended up doing 3 laps. I tried really hard to do 2 feet, but I just didn't feel hugely confident, because the perk of putting 1 foot on the gunnel is if I fly forwards, I can sort of then wrap that back foot around the rack to sort of stop me going past the shroud. Because as soon as I go past the shroud, it is game over. Whereas at least if I fall forwards, I can probably do something about it. It's a difficult one. I'd love to hear what your techniques are for not falling forwards. I was speaking to a contender sailor who says that sometimes they would wedge their back foot into the corner of the cockpit and one on the side where they obviously don't have racks. Yeah, what do you do in double-handers as well? I find in the Hornet, when the Hornet's accelerating, Hornet's like a fireball for those who aren't aware, I don't really find the Hornet accelerates quick enough and is jumpy enough to make me feel like I'm going to fall forwards. As long as I've got my legs wide enough, I feel pretty stable. It's yeah, it's on those. It's how I guess it's how the 600 is so twitchy because of its lightweightness and the sail area being pretty big, that yeah, any little twitch, if you're not quite feeling pretty settled, it can all end very wrong very quickly. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what you all have to say. So yeah, I'm pulling myself up a little bit because I'm actually a little bit far back now. I'm trying to get the weight a little bit further forwards. Yeah, it's just really difficult to gauge, because you go too far forwards or crash into one of the light waves, and then too far back and it just won't accelerate. You can see some of these waves. I'm just trying to surf down them a little bit, and that's helping me get planing. Actually, it's just being able to bear away and just get like taken by some of the waves generated by the wind, which is a concept that I just didn't really think would exist at a reservoir. I thought the waves would never be quite big enough to do anything with. Upwind, they're quite annoying because they're so close to each other that you can't really work the boat over them, unlike at the sea where you can properly work over them. So it's quite difficult. Another pretty nice tack, if I say so myself. I even dropped the tiller, that's how confident I was. Here we go. And there is no harm in taking... The key thing with a 600 is, when you do a tack, the key thing to get right is the entry. And I think I've done the entry fairly well in most of these, where I've got myself sat on the new side and the boat's through the wind. Because if you unhook too early and then turn too late, the boat will stall, you get stuck in the irons, then it's just annoying because you'll probably end up facing the wrong direction anyway. Once you're through the other side, I can then spend my time getting hooked on. It's a lot quicker. Thinking about going for a tack. Ooh, nasty. My main sheet got all wrapped around the tiller extension, it looks like, and I was just struggling really hard to try and get it untangled again. Another reason why I like having it tied off. First thing I did after this race was to tie it off, even though, again, the race offers went straight back into sequence, so I had to do it pretty quickly, which was quite difficult to do one-handed, where the boat was not really cooperating. Ouch. That was not my finest. I mean, the tack itself was quick, but I definitely threw myself. Again, this is the problem I have. I get my weight far forwards. Maybe this is something I need to work on in the heavy winds. I keep trying to get my weight far forwards in the heavy winds, because that's what I do in any other conditions, right? But the problem is then my trapeze ring is way too low. And the sort of thing you do in a 49er is the helm or the crew would use one hand to basically go wire to wire, where they'd maybe hook themselves on as they're walking out, take the slack up in the adjuster by just holding it upright above their head, and then walking out so that by the time they put their weight down, they can guarantee they're still hooked on. I can't really do that. I don't have a free hand to hold the trapeze hook to my harness. I need to be able to play the main and steer, whereas... yeah, the 49er guys, they seem to do a much better job of it, specifically when they do things like their jibes, where they may not immediately pop out on the trapeze, they sort of take their time, whereas the tacks, they will go wire to wire, but that's a little bit different because they've only got one thing in each of their hands, so again, a little bit different. So maybe I need to try hooking on further back, but then I do run the risk of the boat stalling and getting stuck in iron. So yeah, something I'll have to try on the next windy day to see if that will help me improve my tacks. Because yeah, in light winds, I go basically in a horseshoe shape from front round to the back, up to the front again. And then I can hook on quite easily because the hook is always above the rack. I'm actually losing weight at the moment, so maybe I'll run into problems in the lighter winds as well, where I need to have the trapeze lower. But we'll worry about that when I get there. Let's not make promises we can't keep. Yeah, this is the problem I have with the main sheet. It's just getting dragged out the back of the boat, and I just have to keep sort of fighting it rather than focusing on where I'm going, which obviously is a fairly fundamental thing, if I say so myself. Yeah, just trying to get the boat powered up there, get Cunningham off, bit of kicker off already. As you can see, it's still kind of broad, like I'm not really trapezing. I've got myself low enough that I can just sit on the rack and I can just sort of step out if needed. On the occasional gust, maybe I could have sheeted a bit more. It's a bit of an awkward reach. Now, I can't wait to make the video for the final race because we did a figure of 8 course, which meant 2 gybe marks, which, as you can imagine, was my worst nightmare. Especially because it was reaching, so I was having to go from one reach to the next reach and do a gybe, and we don't do that in championships, so it's not the sort of thing that I need to get better at. It's a good skill to have, but it's difficult to do in a boat like this where you need to take kicker off and you need to do this and you need to do that. Whereas you normally keep quite a bit of kicker on in a 600 on these reaches. Not all of it, but you'd want a fair bit, I would say. But yeah, going quite nicely here. Just absolutely flying into the distance. I can't see H yet. I think I'm thinking about the fact that I have to keep bearing away for these gusts. But if I'm going to ever do that gybe, I do need to take a bit of height when I can. But I just... yeah, there you go. Bearing away again and again. But now I'm back onto the gunnel, so it's sort of dying off a little. Well, it's not dying, it's just shifting a bit. There's still plenty of breeze. There's the gybe mark, but I decided, you know what, let's play it safe, because I got hit by another gust, and I thought, let's just pop a quick tack in, even though sometimes tacking a 600 all the way around is potentially going to cause more problems than doing a gybe, because it will stall where you lose all the speed. But I think that was quite a good move. Got the kicker back on, got myself accelerating, and away we go for the final leg, well, before the upwind to the finish, the final bit to the last mark of the course. Just focus on keeping it upright. Hopefully we won't dunk ourselves to windward. It's not fast. But yeah, looks like it's going well. Just got to drop myself a little bit lower there. Yeah, I'd love to know if this, yeah, I'd love to, I know a bunch of you have bought 600s recently after seeing these videos. So yeah, I'd love to hear how you're all doing and how you're getting on with the boat. We do have the inlands this weekend at Grafham Water. So if you haven't entered already, we've got a fantastic bliss forecast of like 12 to 15 knots for both days. We'll have a full championship size course, so if you haven't already, it's a great opportunity to get some racing in with some other 600s. And even if you're new to the boat, I would so recommend going, because when I first bought a 600 after only really sailing laser radials, I had no idea what I was doing, didn't really understand sail shape or anything to do with skiffs. Whoa, pretty fast as I crashed into the next wave. Yeah, I went to a couple of the open meetings that year. Actually, I went to all of them, and everything I learned and the reason I got better much quicker is because I was watching everyone else, asking plenty of questions, and they're so friendly. They're always willing to help. We want to grow the class, get more people sailing these fantastic boats, so don't be put off by it. I know I maybe make it look difficult where I get thrown in and abused by the poor thing, but as you can see from right now, it's pretty epic when it works, and it's pretty epic when you're racing a bunch of other 600s all doing the same thing. Yeah, it gets 10 times cooler, and everyone in the fleet struggles. It's not just the beginners. Yeah, everyone has their moments, and you know, no one's perfect. So yeah, if you're interested, definitely check out the inlands this weekend. I'm going to look at doing potentially a casual training day at Grafham where people can just come along, pay the day sailing fee, and we'll just go out and do a group session. So yeah, we've got two or three people interested in that. So if you are interested, leave a comment in the below. I'd love to hear if you'd be interested in coming to do some training with me and some of the other Grafham guys later in the summer. We'll just get out, do some maneuvers, look on some boat speed, rig setup and stuff. So yeah, if you're interested, let us know. We'd love to have you over to the wonderful Grafham Water. Now, final stretch to the finish. I'm probably a little high on the trapeze there. I've got my legs very wide as I'm just absolutely pooped. But yeah, just focusing on just trying to get myself through the finish. It's definitely getting windier, definitely abusing me more and more. You can see just how much texture and wind there is on the water. But thank goodness the shortened course flag is up. The course has changed again. I haven't seen it. I can see it now in the video, but I'm glad the race officer kept reminding me to have a look, because as soon as I finished, which, yeah, wait for it. There you go, beautiful. I just focus on trying to get off the trapeze ASAP, and then after I've had a quick drink, I'm like, right, let's get this main sheet tied back to the bungee and get it all sorted. So yeah, getting my watch reset, because I know he's about to go into sequence, and then yeah, trying to figure out my main sheet. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Race 2 was not as exciting in my opinion, but Race 3 is where all the drama is. So if you're interested, subscribe, because that will come out next week.